Welcome to Bike Talk with Dave. I'm your host, Dave Mabel. Thank you for joining me here today. I really do enjoy meeting people from around the world and sharing their incredible stories with you every week, and it would not be as much fun if you didn't tune in to listen. So again, thank you for tuning in. This week's guest is the founder and director of the Locos gravel races in Hico, Texas in May and Pueblo, Colorado in September. Fabian Sarralta. I've been working on rolling my R's. I've been following this race since last year and have been intrigued with these races in many ways, from how the events are organized, the unique awards, great routes, and the beneficiaries of the race profits, local volunteer fire departments. I reached out to Fabian recently and I am excited to share our conversation with you. So brew up a cup of delicious chain and spoke coffee and enjoy getting to know Gravel Locos race director Fabian Sarralta. Fabian
Sarralta. Perfect.
Fabian Sarralta. How was that? I appreciate you saying that. You do a much better job at that than I do, and I want to dive into your history. But welcome to Bike Talk with Dave. I'm super thrilled to have you on and talk about your race, the Gravel Locos.
Yes.
Races, the Gravel Locos, because you have two of them.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to Bike Talk with Dave. I appreciate it. I'm excited to have you on because you have the biggest race we've never heard of, according to VeloNews. And that's kind of true. I mean, you're kind of secretly one of the big ones, and we'll talk more about the details of your events. What's your history? Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
So I was born in Cuba, raised there for the first part of my life, and mom and dad and 4 kids. We moved to Miami, Florida in 1980.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
like why? What's the story?
Well, my parents were trying to get out of Cuba since it became communist. So since 1960, they tried to get out, and they made several attempts, and they applied like 20 years. For 20 years, they applied every year to try and get out, and they would keep getting denied. They tried to sneak out and got caught.
Ooh, that can't be good.
Yeah, it was just an ugly situation. Castro, he came into power and he took everybody's business. They're large corporations and all types of businesses. So he confiscated my father's business. He also confiscated my mother's father's business. So eventually all of them realized, hey, this is not going to go back to what it used to be. So just try and get out of here. So both my parents tried to get out. They got caught. My dad spent some time in prison. Again, all politically related. And then finally in 1980, he was able to get us out of there just by pure luck. And it's kind of a bit of a long story, but it has to do with cars. He collected cars. He liked British cars, MGs and Austin Healey's and stuff like that. And he happened to be working on one of the cars, an MGA, in 1979. And some military folks went by our neighborhood, saw my dad working on this car, and said, "Hey, look, we got this general, and he's got a collection of these cars, and we need you to come with us and fix them." And he was like, "I'm not fixing no damn cars for no fucking communists." So. He's been in prison a couple times. So he went inside, told my mom what happened, and she's like, hysterical. How can you do that? They're going to take you to prison and all this. And 2 weeks later, that general showed up at our house with all military guards and military vehicles. And he was actually pretty nice to my dad. He said, "Hey, look, I know that you don't want to help me, and I know you've been in prison. I know you've tried to escape from the island and this and that, and you don't like our politics. But would you just, please come over and look at my cars and help me fix them and just, do it for the love of the cars, and let's leave politics aside. Let's just do it for the cars." And my dad agreed to. So he took me with him for about 3 to 4 months every day. And he got this gentleman's cars all running again, which, by the way, they were not his cars. They used to belong to it belonged to a Coca-Cola executive, Coca-Cola company. So I was, they took his house, his business, and all that. But anyway, so my dad gets all these cars up and running, for me, it was a really interesting experience because it was the first time I realized that everything I was being told in school was a lie. These folks lived in, in a huge house with an indoor pool, and they had all types of food and treats and things that I had never even experienced because, once communism shows up, everything in Cuba, at least in Cuba, everything was gone. I mean, you couldn't even get toothpaste or toilet paper or stuff like that. So never mind ice cream or chewing gum or toys and things like that were they were non-existent. But as a kid, showing up over there at that house with my dad, I really got to experience the way the other people lived, the military people, and that was a shocker. So by the time my dad was done fixing all these cars, he gave him an offer of moving our entire family to that gated neighborhood. And all he had to do was just maintain his cars. And my dad rejected. He said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to stay at my house. This is the house that I built for my family, which it was a nice home. It was, for us, it was a great size house. It was 7 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, and it was 6 of us. It was a great house. And he just did not want to leave that. That's something that he was proud of, building that for his family. And then the gentleman said, well, what can I do for you in return? And my dad said, get me and my family the hell out of here. And the guy was like, well, you sure you want to do that? If you go to the United States, you're going to be working for minimum wage and 40, 50, 60 hours, and you're going to live in a tiny little apartment and all this stuff. And my dad said, yeah, just get us out of here. I want my kids to have an opportunity to build something and make something of themselves, and it's just not going to happen here. And sure enough, a few weeks later, they woke us up like at 3 a.m. because none of us kids knew about it. And it was the military folks, and they woke us up and they loaded us up in a car, and we couldn't bring our toys or our dog or anything. It was the weirdest thing, to be, I was 9 years old, and to be woken up in the middle of the night and told, hey, you can't take your dog, and you can't take this, and you can't take that. And they put us on an airplane that evening or that early morning, and next thing you know, we were in Miami, Florida, living in a 1-bedroom with 1 bathroom and 7 people.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, he was kind of right, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was right. My poor dad was pumping gas at a gas station, and it was rough. I mean, it was rough for many years that way. I mean, we lived in that place for like 5 years, and I remember as a kid, like, how the hell is this better, I don't have my own room, I don't have my dog, I don't have any toys, and we have to share 1 bathroom, and there's 7 of us. It was a freaking nightmare. But yeah, that was the introduction to the United States. Took a while before I realized my dad did the right thing, and it would be better eventually.
Yeah. So tell me your name as you came over.
So when my name. So when when in Cuba I was Fabian Sarralta, and it's funny because they also use your mother's last name. So it was Fabian Sarralta Galvez, and then I get to the United States and I start school, and I didn't speak English, so then the teacher didn't speak Spanish, and nobody spoke Spanish, so it was just like every day I would show up and sit down and just like sit there. And the first time I was called, I remember her. She said, Fabian Sarralta. It's like, Fabian Sarralta. And I wasn't responding. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, man, that kind of sounds like my name. But
yeah, you didn't know it was you, right?
No, I didn't. But that teacher, she was so, poor thing. She was so frustrated with the whole situation that we were in. And she would take me up to her desk, and she would see that I was at my desk crying, like frustrated, and she start crying. I go up to her desk, and we're sitting there talking. We're trying to communicate and crying in a lot of sign language, and she would hug me. She was just the sweetest lady ever. But it was definitely a frustrating situation to go from one country to another and not speak the language, and pretty frustrating.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you're still here, and your accent is great. I mean, well, I shouldn't say great. It's very American. You sound like you were born here, actually.
Yeah, well, I've been asked if I'm German, so apparently something comes through every once in a while. I'm like, no, I'm not German. So I remember when I first got to Texas, I was at a running store getting some sneakers, and this lady asked me if I was German, and I said, no, I'm Cuban. And she's like, Cuban? Where's that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Huh.
I was like, where were you during the Cold War?
That's crazy. So how'd you get started with bikes? Like, what's your bike story?
I got started with BMX. So when we lived in that first neighborhood, there was a bike shop, which is still in Miami, Cycle World, and owned by Mr. and Mrs. Lee. And I had this little beat up bike, and I would go to their shop, and they were just the nicest couple. And they're still in business, Cycle World, out of Miami, Florida. And they just asked me if I wanted to join their BMX racing team, and and they just kind of took me under their wing, and they gave me a shirt and pants, and they put tires on my bike. They fixed it. At one point, they gave me rims. One point, they gave me a frame. I mean, they were just really great people. So they would kind of took me under their wing, and they had a van, and they would take us, several kids, to the racetracks in Miami, Homestead, Pompano, Florida, and stuff like that. So I got started with racing BMX, and I got a little bit into motocross, and then one day a buddy of mine that I met, I've been involved with German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois and training them and stuff like that. So I met this guy, and we started training our dogs together. And he rode on the road, and he invited me, so I put some slick tires on my mountain bike and started riding with the road guys on a mountain bike in Miami. And then from there, I moved to Texas and got my first road bike. And in 2015, I was visiting my son in Denver. He was at the University of Denver. And I went into a specialized store, and they had a bike that I thought was so freaking cool. It looked like a road bike, but it had like these sort of mountain bike looking tires. And I had no idea what it was. So I asked, and someone said, "Oh, it's a cyclocross bike." I'm like, "What is that?" I didn't even know what cyclocross was. So I said, "I'll take it." So I purchased it, and they shipped it to my bike shop, local bike shop in Texas. They built it for me. And the reason I was so excited about that bike is a few years prior, I had purchased this ranch in Oklahoma, and the driveway alone is like 3 miles of gravel, and then the next paved road is like another 10 miles. So I could never bring my road bikes. And to me, I was like, this is just brilliant. This bike is going to fix everything. I did. I started riding, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I signed up for my first gravel event it was October 1st, 2016 in Texas. And I showed up with this cross bike, and I didn't know any better. So I was on the road. I was running tubulars.
Oh, wow.
And I would glue my own tires, and you pump them up to 120 psi or more. So with this Crocs, it had 700 by 33C tires, and I figured I'm gonna drop the pressure, and I dropped it to like 90 psi in the rear, 95 in the front, and this course was it was pretty hilly, and it was an area called Munster, Texas, and I show up with 90 psi front, 95. I show up with no food, nothing, because I figured, hey, I've got 2 bottles, I got some snacks. There's going to be some aid stations. I figured it was going to be like a road rally. You pay your fee. There's aid stations and all that. And sure enough, I never thought in a million years it was going to take me that long to ride 50 miles. Halfway through it, I ran out of fluids and food, and there's nothing out there in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, wow.
There was a water stop where they had water jugs, but there was like no food, nothing else. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to frickin' die out here. But it was an ass kicking. And that pressure just beat the hell out of me.
Oh, man, I can't believe you stuck with it.
Oh, man, when I got back to my SUV, I called a buddy of mine who's the one that told me about it. That morning he canceled. He said, I'm going to freaking kill you, dude. And he's like, what'd you do? And I told him, he goes, oh, no, man, you're supposed to run like 30 PSI, 35. You got to run bigger tires. No, it's self-supportive. You're supposed to bring your own shit. I'm like, thanks, Juan. Thanks for telling me all this. I'm going to kill you.
Right. That's awesome. So you liked it. You stuck it out.
Man, I hated it that day. But, and I left there so mad. I was like, I am never going to do this again. I'm freaking getting rid of this bike. I think by the time I got home to the ranch, it was not far from the Oklahoma ranch. By the time I got back over there, took a shower and sat down, I was like, I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to do it again. So signed up for the next one. And, then started asking people, what's the tire pressure, the tire types, and all the stuff that I didn't know anything about. And I hadn't read anything about as far as, you have to, I think the event said something about, safety rules and helmet and all that kind of stuff. But I was not prepared, and I certainly didn't do my homework prior to going.
So that was 2016. That's not that long ago.
No, no. And then I just started signing up for every gravel event I could find. I signed up for BWR San Diego. I did several of the Bike Monkey events in California. I got hooked on it, and it was just the greatest thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So why start a bike race?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with that first experience, and also having a lot of friends and knowing a lot of people from the road group rides that weren't doing it, and I kept hearing the same kind of theme. Well, it's just, things like people were worried, especially people that were new to cycling, they like the idea of riding out there in less traffic or no traffic, which, you don't experience it in gravel like you do in road cycling. They like that aspect of it. They like the adventure, the being outside, all that stuff. What they didn't like was just not having aid stations and not having SAG vehicles and things like that, because not everybody can, repair their own bike, or not everybody has the gear or wants to carry all the gear to be self-supportive. And the more I kept hearing, I kept trying to get folks, come on, man, you got to come with me, get a gravel bike or use your mountain bike. And it was hard to get people to do it, especially beginners or people that were kind of new to cycling. So that was kind of frustrating. And from my own first experience, I could really understand why some people would want to do it, but are kind of concerned. And, I've said this many times, is that the best thing about gravel is that you're out in the middle of nowhere with no traffic. If you see a car, at least where I ride, you hardly ever see a car. You hardly ever see a house, but that's also what makes it dangerous, because, there's no cell phone reception. And should you get hurt or have a mechanical, you're not going to see anybody out there probably. So my whole thought was, man, what if I start an event that's gravel, but it's kind of treated like the road rallies. And at least the road rallies that I had been to in Texas, there's aid stations every 20 miles or 15 or 10 miles. There's SAG vehicles that are marked. There's, all sorts of support that, should you get hurt or something happen, you have help. And that's where the idea came to start Gravel Locos in Texas and treat it like a road rally event as far as support.
Huh, very cool.
That scary side out of gravel,
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. Kind of make your own rules. You've got, well, first of all, there's two events. One in Hico, Texas, and
so they pronounce it
Hico, Texas, and one in Pueblo, Colorado.
Yes.
Texas is May 20th. Colorado is September 30th. And you've got 4 distance choices for each one. And let's focus on Hico? Hico. Sorry. I've got a kid who just moved to Austin about a year ago, so I'm I'm learning Texas, quite frankly. I've never really spent any time in Texas, so
is he in school in Austin now, or?
He is building rockets in Austin.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, kind of cool.
That's a great city.
Yep, it is a great city. Very good city. So we are looking for an excuse to bring our bikes down to Austin, and Gravel Locos may be that.
We love that. I mean, definitely Houston, great music scene, great cycling scene, great restaurant scene. It's got a lot of charm.
You forgot to mention the breweries.
Oh, yes. Well,
some breweries down there as well.
Restaurants, yeah. Great barbecue, too.
Yeah, no doubt. So take me through the events, the distances, the names. They've got cool names. And I don't know. Give us the flyover of your Texas race on May 20th.
Yeah, the idea was just, again, kind of treat it like a road rally. And I wanted to have a lot of distances for people that, so we have the La Pequeña or the GL 30, Gravel Locos 30. It's going to be 30-something miles. And again, that's designed for folks that kind of want to experience gravel maybe for the first time, or or maybe somebody that can't ride farther than that because they got injured, whatever the reason may be, somebody that wants to experience gravel. Then we have your typical 100K, the GL60 or La Mediana, and that's just, again, 100K, which is pretty common. From there, we jump to the La Gran Piedra, which is the GL 100, and it's usually a little over 100 miles. And that's for people that want to do more than 60, but they don't want to do 150 something miles. That's the reason for that. And then the main route is the GL 150, which is 150 something miles, and in Texas is over 8,000 feet of climbing, and in Colorado I think it was over 10,000. I have to look it up. So it's just trying to offer people options. Maybe the wife wants to do 100 miles, but the husband wants to do 30. Or your buddy wants to do 150, but you only want to do 60. So it's just trying to make it so that people and friends and stuff can have an option. And we see most of our registration takes place in I'm shocked. A lot of times there's almost even. The 150 something miler and the 100 miler almost have the same numbers.
Really? That surprises me.
Yeah, our smallest registration numbers are usually the short route, but again, the 100 miler and the 150 something get most of the numbers, and then the 100 mile, the 100K. So it's pretty interesting to see how many people are willing to take on something like that.
Well, and it doesn't sound flat.
No, we think of Texas as being flat. A lot of people do, and I always say, yeah, it's flat until you get on a bike.
Fair. That's actually a good answer.
Especially in Hico.
Couple of hills, the Loco Hill. That just sounds like it would just break your legs right off of your body.
Yeah, the thing about Texas gravel, at least in Hico, is that they're not really long climbs, but they're punchy. I mean, they're pretty steep. So we do have one that's pretty long. I think it's about 4 miles long.
Oh, wow.
One particular climb. But the ones that really get you are those ones that are just super steep and not very long. And that's where you see a lot of the races decided. A lot of, the breakaways and stuff like that tend to happen in these, Loco Hill, I've seen, it's early on. It's around mile 20 something. But you do see where people start testing their legs and somebody will take off and go all the way to the front. And then we got the 3Bs, which are these pretty massive, steep, back-to-back 3 climbs. Those are brutal. I mean, you watch the pros and they're just crawling up these things. They're not flying. I mean, they're crawling. They're pretty good. I've seen many people just topple over.
Oh, wow.
They go up into the 20%, elevation. I mean, I'm sorry, 20% grades. So it's very different from our Colorado. The Pueblo route is absolutely gorgeous also, but it's more gradual climbing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of climbing in Pueblo, but it's not like the Hico. So they're both very, very different events.
Huh, very cool.
Pueblo's in the fall, and Gravel Locos is in the spring. So the flowers, all the wildflowers and stuff, you experience that in Hico. And then the colors in Pueblo are just stunning, the fall colors.
Yeah. Recommend people doing both.
Yeah, I would.
For sure.
I wish I could.
Sure.
I'm just working.
So I'm curious. The biggest race we never heard of. Dude, you've got I'm just going to read this list I wrote down. You've got world tour folks. Nicholas Roche, Nikki Terpstra, Alex Howes, Lawrence Tandam, Ian Boswell, Andrew Talansky, Ted King, Allison Tetrick, Lauren Stevens, Laura King. That's kind of fun. Laura and Ted, did they ride tandem? They should ride tandem.
No, they would be killing the field pup. They were competitive. Great people.
Yeah, no doubt. Emily Newsom, Sarah Sturm, Marissa Boaz. I got to mention her because she's an Iowa girl. But you've got a freaking stellar list of people lining up. How did you do that?
I think a lot of it has to do with timing. And our event is the first year it was 2 weeks before Unbound, which is what I've always wanted. And then last year we tried 3 weeks, and it just didn't work out as well. But that 2 week period before Unbound is sort of that sweet spot where, a lot of the folks from Europe are already in town. They want to acclimate. They want to get used to the weather, the area. And having an event 2 weeks before Unbound is perfect for them, especially all those world tour guys, because they're already in the States. Heiko is the distance. I purposely made it less than 200 miles because they don't want to ride 200 miles before Unbound. So we make it 150 something. The elevation is pretty similar. You're going to be climbing just about as much in those 150 something miles that you are going to be in at Unbound. The weather in Texas is very similar around that time of year. You can have a ton of rain like we did in 2021, which Unbound had in 2022, or it could be a really hot year, which we had in Texas 2022, which Unbound has had. So it's really a great place and a great city, Heiko, and race Gravel Locos right before Unbound and race against some of the fastest, probably the fastest pros in the world, men and women. In fact, if you pay attention, you always see that whoever wins Gravel Locos or whoever's in the top 5 of Gravel Locos, men and women, they're going to be in the top 5 of Unbound. In 21, Lawrence Tendam got second in Unbound. He was first at Gravel Locos. In 2022, Ivar was second at Gravel Locos. He was first at Unbound. You look at Marisa Boas. I mean, she just killed the GL 150. And I believe she won in Unbound. I think it was she won the 100 miler at Unbound in 2022. And here's somebody that nobody had probably heard about, and she just dominated Gravel Locos in the women's field. I mean, and she was racing against some pretty strong riders. Sarah Sturm and Jess Sarah. You had Alison Tetrick and several other women. So it was not an easy race. And it was hot, and Marissa just smoked that course. So I think what makes Gravel Loco so attractive is this. Again, it's 2 weeks, so you can race against the best and test your legs, and then you've got 2 weeks to recover, and then you've got Unbound. And the biggest thing that I heard from all the European riders that come is like, please don't do it 3 weeks before again, because we can't take that much time off. But that was a big thing.
Yeah.
And, I want the race to be open to folks from all over the place. So I went back to the original date of 2 weeks before Unbound, because for them it's perfect. They arrive Wednesday of the week of Gravel Locos. They race Gravel Locos Saturday. Then they do some light training in between, and then they race Unbound on the Saturday, 2 weeks later, and they take off Sunday. So it's easier for them to take 2 weeks off than taking 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's just hard. I mean, it's the same for us. For us to go to Europe and take 3-4 weeks off from work or home or whatever, it's not an easy thing to do. So that's really, I think, what's the biggest draw for these folks when they see Gravel Locos is like, man, this is a great way. It's not 200 miles, similar elevation that I'm going to experience, and temperature-wise and terrain is very similar in many aspects. So it's a great opportunity to test your legs against the best.
Yeah. Well, you do have some differences between Gravel Locos and, say, an Unbound. I appreciated your posts on Instagram.
You wouldn't believe
arrow bars.
Yeah. How many
mass start.
How many emails and DMs I got about that? It's like, are you going to start imposing all that stuff? I'm like, so I started responding one by one. I'm like, this is it. This is getting old. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to announce it. And, what I like about gravel is what I first experienced. And it was just like this, no rules, just folks showing up and all types of bikes. I've seen folks show up in mountain bikes, hybrids, e-bikes, full-blown gravel bikes, road bikes that probably shouldn't be there with 700 by 30. And you got folks wearing flannel shirts and jean shorts and ones that are all team kitted out. that's what I thought was so fun about it. And everybody kind of rode together. It was no big deal. We start together, and it would break up, and the fast folks take off, and the rest of us are in the back. And I'm starting to see like this trend where it's just all these rules and all this stuff, and next thing you know, it's like you can't ride it unless you have a UCI approved bike, or you can't wear a skin suit, or you can't do this. And to me, that just kind of starts taking away from when I first experienced gravel. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. If folks want to dress a certain way, they can dress that way. They can ride whatever the hell they want to ride. They can use aero bars if they want. I don't see a need to give the pros a head start. And believe me, a lot of them have become very close friends, and have asked me to ban aero bars. Have asked me to do a separate start. I refuse to do it because it's not gravel. I mean, the whole idea about gravel is come as you are, bring what you got, and ride together. This whole idea of being inclusive. So we start separating each other. Where does being inclusive go? And to me, what's going on with gravel kind of reminds me of a very close German friend of mine, and she would always say, "Why make it simple when difficult will do?" And I was like, "No, Heidi, simple is good." She always wanted to complicate everything, and so I'm just trying to keep gravel simple. That's what I like, and if people like it, they can come. If they don't like it, there's so many great events out there. And I've mentioned them. Probably one of my greatest accomplishments on the bike were Mid-South in 2020. Ted and Laura's event in Vermont. I did it in 2021. Jess Sarah's Montana event. Again, these are just huge efforts from these events that you may not hear about as much. We always hear about all the big corporate events because they've got huge marketing teams and all that great stuff, but we don't hear about some of these events that to me are spectacular. They're challenging. The efforts are huge. I'm hoping that Ted and Laura will bring the Route of Vermont back. They have a pause for 2023, so it's not happening. But Jess, Sarah, and Sam Boardman, both pro cyclists. Their event is in Montana in Whitefish. I did it in 2021, and man, by the time I was done, it was like 9:00 at night. But it was brutal, and those are great events. And as I mentioned earlier, the Mid-South, there's a lot of great local events all over the states. I've done BWR. I think that's another great event. Now that they've got several of them, and there's here in Texas we have another one that started in Sweetwater, Texas, the Rattlesnake gravel grind. But all over, I'm sure you all have your events in Iowa.
Oh, it's something every weekend.
Yeah. And if you go to those events, you don't hear about all these rules and what you can or cannot do, and everybody's separated, and you start first, and you start. I don't know. I like a mass start. I like mixed. There's women and men. Everybody's together. I don't care where you're from, what color you are, what preferences you have. I made it very, very clear that I do not bring politics into Gravel Locos. I do not bring religion. I don't bring any social issues, gender issues. Absolutely nothing. It's about gravel. And if people want to hear about all those things, I'm sure there are events that are focused on politics and religion and other stuff. But I feel that those topics are more than likely going to divide us. And for me to have an inclusive environment, I try and keep out everything that's divisive out of it. So if I just focus on gravel and no rules, but by no rules, I mean rules that I think are silly, things to do with the mass start, or things to do with what you wear, or your gravel having aero bars. But yeah, we do have rules as far as you got to wear a helmet, and you have to obey the traffic laws because we don't want you to get killed. That's it.
That's fair.
And I feel there should be aid stations, and there should be SAG vehicles, and for the women, I have portable bathrooms at the aid stations because it's very easy for the guys to go on the side of the road, but it's not easy for a female to go to the bathroom. So little things like that. But as far as rules, it's wear a helmet and obey traffic laws, and it's just so you don't getting rolled by a car. It's just, or if you fall, you don't, bust your head. We want you to be able to go home afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. I like to ask people how they would define the spirit of gravel, and I'll ask you, but I kind of feel like you just answered it. How do you define the spirit of gravel?
I always go back to my first experience, and everybody was really nice at the start. We were all together, and I just remember looking around, and everybody was different. It was dressed different, was riding something different. There was dudes with the shaved legs and the silky legs and the lycra and the team kits and the matching shoes and glasses, and then there's ones that are hairy legs with a long beard, and and the same with the women. It was just so diverse. That's what I consider the spirit of gravel, a diverse environment where you can just be yourself. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, what your sexual preference. None of that matters. What matters is that we're going to ride bikes and we're going to have a freaking blast and we're going to kick our butts out there, because this is not easy. But at the end of it, you're going to feel like, man, I did something amazing. That's how I felt when I finished Mid-South, when I finished Route of Vermont, when I finished the last best ride in Montana. It kicked my ass so bad. And I walked and I crawled, and at the end of it, I felt so good about finishing it and felt proud about it. One of the things that I don't have at our events is I do not have a cutoff. There is no cutoff. I don't care how freaking long it takes you to finish. So to me, that's the spirit of gravel. I can't understand. I can't imagine how I would feel. Actually, I've been to events where I've been told you got to turn around because you didn't meet the cutoff, and I said, you're going to have to freaking fight me, because I don't care. I'm still going to go. So I've done that at a few events, and people have been, a couple of folks have been a little upset about it, and made a comment, but I don't care. I'm here to do this from beginning to end. So at Gravel Locos, we don't have a cutoff. In fact, we always give trophies to the last 5 people that show up. And it could be midnight, it could be 1 a.m., whatever it is. We are out there, we have beer, drinks, food, waiting for them, and a trophy. Because to me, if you're out there 14, 15 hours, you're a freaking badass. Because that's an ass,
for sure,
ass kicking in itself. And, and I always tell the pros, you guys do it in 7 hours. Cool, but this is what you've been doing all your lives. You're trained for this. This is your full-time job. But, just a regular person to go out there and do the same route, and it takes them twice as long. That's twice the beating. I don't care who you are. So, we celebrate that. We celebrate the last 5. If I had enough time to make more trophies, I'd probably celebrate more than that. But, I make my own trophies. So it's rough. It gets, when you're making 40-something trophies, it gets tiring. But
that's awesome. I can actually relate to that.
There's no cutoff. And I've been the last one. I can't tell you. I was the last one at Ted's event. I was the last one at Jess, Sarah, and Boardsman's event. It took me 14 and a half hours to do Mid-South in 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a beating. But, I'm going back to Mid-South in March, and I signed up for the full course again. I think I'm going to have to slice it down to half the course, because since I started Gravel Locos, I literally stopped riding. I just, between my 2 other businesses and running Gravel Locos, I just, I don't have time to ride. So I've gained a ton of weight, and I haven't been riding at all. So I think I'm going to have to message Bobby and said, please switch me to the 50-miler.
I tell you, signing up for races does get you on your bike, even if only for that day. So
yes,
you'll be out there. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, how does somebody connect?
What's that?
How does somebody connect with Gravel Locos?
Yeah, website. I respond to the emails. I respond to all the DMs on Instagram or Facebook. It takes me a little while, but I always respond. I joke around. I say that, Gravel Locos Instagram is a Cuban with an iPhone, and really that's what it boils down to. I should be sponsored by Apple. I take
awesome.
pictures and I do the posts. So if you hate it, you only have me to blame. So I do all the social media. I respond to emails. all the messages that I get via Instagram or Facebook. So, they're more than happy to connect. If they need anything else, I give out my cell phone number if somebody needs something else, if I can help anybody. I've helped a few folks start their own events. It's not an impossibility. If I could do it, other people can do it. But yeah, I'm really, I really hope that a lot of these independent events, not Gravel Locos, but the smaller ones, that people start really looking into them and experiencing them. If you wanna keep that spirit of gravel that we talk about, it's happening at all these, these grassroots small events all throughout the U.S. Every weekend there's one, and hopefully folks will start, looking into them. They're definitely worth going to. You don't just have to go to the big events, and in fact, some of those small events are probably, have been my favorite.
Registration gravellocos.bike.
Yeah, gravellocos.bike. Hyco registration is still open until we reach our max. Same with Pueblo. Pueblo is going to be a little interesting this year because I purposely schedule the event to stay away from other events. You can't help it if you have an event in one state and somebody has another one 2 states away or a state. That can happen. But
right.
I made sure that our Pueblo event is never the same weekend as the Lifetime Fitness event in Trinidad. And last year I got a call from Lifetime Fitness that they were going to move their Trinidad event to our same weekend in Pueblo. Well, we're like 45, 50 minutes apart, guys. And that was really, it was really a bad situation because, we're a small event. I mean, yes, the biggest race you've never heard of, but we're still, Gravel Locos is myself, my buddy Robert, and Eric, the 3 of us, and a few volunteers. That's what we do. Everything. We make our own trophies. We load up our own trailers. I do the social media. This is a backyard thing. This is the sandlot of events. So we can't compete with events like Lifetime Fitness. So they contacted me last year to say, hey, look, we're going to have to change our event date, and we're going to move it to your event date. And I was like, oh. And they asked if I could move my event. I said, I can't. The weekend before is the Pueblo Chili Festival. And the weekend after, when they were normally going to have their event, well, that's when Gravel Worlds, UCI Gravel Worlds is. So if I host the event when UCI Gravel Worlds take place, then I'm going to lose some of the pros that come. So I figured for the same reason they moved their event as well. I can't imagine Lifetime Fitness is going to want to have a race doing UCI Gravel Worlds either.
Right.
So it's definitely going to affect our registration, and it's going to affect the event, and ultimately it hurts the fire department because our funds go to the volunteer fire departments. And the one in Pueblo, it's the volunteer fire department in Pueblo that we benefit. They don't have indoor plumbing. They don't have an indoor toilet. They don't have a sink to wash their hands. They don't have running water. They literally have a portable bathroom outside. So these folks come because they do fire and rescue. So they can come back from an accident, from a fire, and they need to wash their hands. And they don't have running water. So they use either hand sanitizer or transmission fluid to sanitize their hands. I mean, this is no joke. And they're charged with carrying for over 100 and something miles of land. So we have been raising money to help them make the station larger and bring indoor plumbing. The reason for the station being larger is because they don't have enough room for all their vehicles to go inside. Well, the winters are pretty brutal. So when those vehicles are outside, these are old vehicles from the 60s and the 70s, those carburetors, they just won't start.
Right.
And now having the Lifetime Fitness event moved to our same exact weekend and less than an hour away, it's going to be hard. I really don't know what's going to happen. It's already impacted our registration because I can see that whole glamorous thing about Lifetime Fitness and then now the Trinidad event, the RAD, is also part of the Lifetime Grand Prix.
Right.
That appeals to some people. So it's affected our registration in Pueblo, which is unfortunate. And who knows? I don't know what's going to happen with the Pueblo event. going forward if that continues. But it's something that I'm passionate about. And Heiko, in 2021, we were able to get them a command fire truck. It's a vehicle that's worth about $85,000, and they had been waiting for one for over 5 years, and there were still like 100 and something on a wait list. And then last year we did a renovation to the station I think the cost came in at around $140,000. We added almost 3,000 square feet to the station, foam insulated, created a lounge, upstairs lounge for all the firefighters. This is something that they've been wanting to do for 35, 40 years. And, we were able to do it with the registration money from Gravel Locos.
Wow.
So that's probably the most, that's what I would say is also the spirit of gravel, that these events, or at least our event, and like many others, I'm sure, our funds stay in the community that we host the event at. Our funds go to the volunteer fire department at Heiko and the volunteer fire department in Pueblo. So to me, that's, again, part of the whole spirit of gravel. Is this inclusive environment that everybody's welcome, but that also that we make a physical, visual impact on these communities that we're at. And we do that with something that you can actually witness. You can go to Heiko and you can witness the new fire station. And, hey, we did that. People that register, we did that. And they can see the new command fire truck. We did that. With Heiko, you can go there and ride, and you'll hear it from the firefighters. They all know about Gravel Locos, and they're very grateful. And that was done by the folks that showed up to ride, the money that they paid for registration. And my hope is that with Pueblo, that one day people are going to be able to show up and say, "Oh, that's the new station," and we did it by riding gravel and registering, and now they have indoor plumbing. So that's the goal with Pueblo. The same thing that we've done with Heiko. It's just a little uncertain right now with what's going on with having a big corporate event just down the street on your same day. That's going to be rough.
Yeah, that is rough, and I feel like you've defined the spirit of gravel, and that doesn't feel like the spirit of gravel.
It doesn't.
There's an editorial comment.
Nothing that I can do about it, but
Right. That's too bad. Well, listen, I'm going to encourage people to hop on to gravellocos.bike and sign up for either one, May 20th or September 30th. Head on out to Pueblo and see the fall colors, or drive down to Texas, or up, I suppose, if you're in Austin, and see the spring flowers.
Absolutely. Now, and I've visited Iowa a few times to go look at cars, classic cars. I love cars from the 50s and 60s. I've gone into your state a couple of times.
We do have them here, but I would say generally people from here go down to Texas, where they don't salt the roads in the winter.
I've found a few gems in Iowa.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck this year in both. I'll say it again, Heiko.
Heiko, you got it down, Heiko.
I got it. All right, I got to learn. I got to keep working on it.
I have a hard time saying Colorado. I have to say, the natural thing is to say Colorado, and people look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like,
I love the accent. You said Marissa Boaz, and I was like, oh, he could say that all day long. I love how he says that. Her name.
I'm hoping to see her again in Gravel Locos. She's awesome, man.
Well, she signed up, so I think she's planning on coming down. She is awesome.
Looking forward to seeing her and seeing how she does. She's a beast.
She is a beast. She's been actually has an amazing story. So.
Yeah, it's inspiring. After she won Gravel Locos, and I start looking a little more into her, and then I start following her, and she's a mom. She's got 4 kids, and all the stuff she's done. It's like, that's an inspiration. It's like, man, talk about juggling your time, and I've got 4 kids too, and it's not easy.
It is not easy.
It's not easy, and so I try not to feel sorry for myself when I say I don't have time to ride. I'm like, oh, look at her. She
yep, juggling 4 kids, husband, and
get on the trainer, Fabian.
And she's riding at the front of the race. She's not getting an award for the last 5.
Yeah,
she's getting an award for being the first 5.
Yes,
it's amazing. Exactly. Yeah, she really is amazing. She's an inspiration, and she just started racing.
I know,
2018.
Yes, freaking unbelievable, man.
Yeah, which says to me, like, hey, if you're thinking about it, like dive in. It's never too
Yeah.
late.
Emily Newsom is another person that, started late and it just incredible athlete,
Yep. It's fun.
Her
I
mom.
feel like gravel gives you the opportunity for that,
Yes, absolutely.
you know, because you can just line up and go. And gosh, if you're fast, you're
Yep.
fast and you're racing at the front, and you don't have to work your way through, Cat 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Uh-huh.
or whatever. You show up and lace up your shoes, put on your helmet, and ride your bike
And win.
and win. Right. There's that
In their
part
case,
for
at
sure.
least. Well, thank you
Yep.
so much, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time to invite me on and all that. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate it, and we'll wish you the best of luck this spring and fall.
Well, stay in touch and love to see you at Gravel Locos. Either one, let me know.
We'd love to make it down to Texas.
All right, brother. Thank you.
I want to thank Fabian for joining me on Bike Talk with Dave. I can't wait to get down to Hico to explore the hill country of Texas. I'm not sure if we can make it down there this year, but we'll be rolling around on those beautiful gravel roads sometime soon for sure. Follow Gravel Locos Races on Instagram and Facebook. There is a ride distance for everyone. And thank you too for tuning in to Bike Talk with Dave. If you like this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And feel free to share it with your friends. And if you'd like to support the show financially, you can look for Bike Talk with Dave at buymeacoffee.com, or keep it simple and hit me up on Venmo at David-Mabel. If you do, I'll send you a Bike Talk with Dave sticker. There's a link to buy me a coffee in the show notes. I also need to thank BikeIowa.com for being the online host of Bike Talk with Dave. BikeIowa.com is your one-stop shop with an incredible event calendar, as well as news, information, and trails in Iowa and around the Midwest. New events are added every week. And in fact, if you are an event director, get your event on the calendar ASAP. It's easy to do. Just create an account and log in, and then you can add and edit your information. It's an easy way to reach thousands of cyclists, and it will not cost you a dime. One of the races you might find on BikeIowa.com is the Driftless 100. It is a challenging, scenic gravel race through the wooded hills of northeast Iowa on April 29th, starting in the town of Elkader. I'll be there with the Iowa Gravel Gang. You can join us by signing up today. Click the link on BikeIowa.com or go to driftlessgravel.com to register. Now I'm going to go brew another cup of Chain and Spoke coffee. I've got a bag of the Brap blend that I've been enjoying this month. It is their signature espresso blend, but I've been enjoying it as a drip, and it is equally delicious as a pour over. And it's available now by ordering at chainandspoke.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We've got lots of great episodes coming up, including Mark West, mechanic for the Steve Tilford Foundation. And I'm excited to share a great conversation with a young lady who's been riding her bike around this beautiful planet and hoping to leave it a happier place. Hannah Kern, or she's known on Instagram and Facebook, Hannah Happiness. And later this month, we'll talk with Matt Phippen, director of the annual Bike Ride Across Iowa, RAGBRAI. So be sure to subscribe and follow Bike Talk with Dave on Instagram and Facebook so you don't miss a thing. Have a great week and spread happiness.